Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Brittany Rogers.
It's 2011, and I just got my degree in secondary education from Wayne State University. And I'm so excited, right? I had to take a year off from school due to the birth of my first child, and I, at that point, felt like I was just never, ever going to finish. But finally I did, and I had a plan. I was gonna be a teacher in Detroit. I was gonna teach English to high school kids. I was gonna love it. It was going to be great, right? So in the midst of my excitement, I call up my stepfather, whom I affectionately call stepdad, to share the good news. So imagine my shock when he says, "You're gonna teach where? In Detroit? I mean, I love you, but are you sure? In Detroit? I hear that their schools are in disarray. You should just come and teach up here where I live." My stepfather lives in Macomb, Michigan. Not Macomb County. Macomb, the city, on 21 Mile in Gratiot. I was not going to teach in Macomb. So I say, "Stepdad, if we're being honest, I hear the same. But I love my city, and I love my kids, and I can't picture teaching anywhere else." So we hang up the phone, and even though he has his concerns, I'm still pretty excited. My stepdad loves me, and he means well, but he worries a lot. And I figure, what's the worst that can happen, right? So I begin my journey as an educator. In 2012, I get hired at a Detroit charter, a middle school. I get hired in the middle of October, which should have been a red flag that pointed to high teacher turnover. But I'm a new teacher, so what do I know? I'm just excited to have a job, right? And I love teaching. I loved each and every single one of my students, even though I had about 170 on my caseload and about 40 in every single class. I loved that aha moment when they finally understood the book that we were reading, even though lesson planning took at least 5 hours every Sunday. It was great. But overall, I really just loved doing what I set out to do. I loved knowing that I was impacting somebody's life in a significant way. But at the end of the year, I get another call from my stepdad. And he says, "Oh, Brittany, how are things going down there? I hear that you guys don't have any new books or supplies, that the funding's kind of low." And what could I say? The funding was kind of low. We didn't have any new books or supplies. We didn't even have the money to get our pay raises that year. But I was pretty confident that things would change, so I tell him, I don't expect things to just change overnight, stepdad. But eventually, something has to change. By 2013, nothing had changed. We hadn't gotten our pay raises that year, or at least teachers hadn't gotten their pay raises. We had no idea what HR and administration got. Charters were not particularly known for their transparency. I woke up one morning and realized, in fact, that charters had all the issues of public schools, but somehow they managed to come out as the golden child. We had the same pay. We had the same community of students. Our test scores were not better. Our buildings were not better. In fact, I started to feel like I was missing a few things. I didn't have a union to fight for a wage increase. I didn't have pension protection. Right. So I slept on it and I said, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to apply to Detroit Public Schools instead, where at least if I'm going to have the same issues, I could have a bit more job security." So I applied. And right before I got accepted, there was a series of protests going on. DPS was talking about not only cutting wages, again, but also increasing class size to 43. Which, was a bit scary, shall we say. But by that point, I had already been in charters And I had those issues before. And again, I figured at least I can have the same issues with a bit more job security. So I put on some really warm clothes and I went down and I joined the protest. Figuring that I should start standing up for the rights for the district that I knew I wanted to belong to. 2015 comes and brings with it more phone calls. Hey, Brittany. So I saw on the news that you guys have mice in your buildings and there was mold growing out of the walls, and I just think this is just preposterous. Macomb schools don't have these problems, you know. We have clean buildings. We have brand new supplies. I mean, really, what's taking you so long to just come up here? Well, stepdad, Macomb students don't need me the way my students do. And besides, the buildings are not even at the top of my concern list. You want to know what it is? This deficit. How is it that we have an emergency manager and we're still missing millions of dollars? What do emergency managers do if they don't, manage things? A few months later, hey, Brittany, are you at work today? Like, is your school closed? Because the schools up here got a few shooting threats and they closed. And so it made me think about you because, you really shouldn't be at work today if your school is not closed. I know, stepdad. I saw the threats too. They were online and we don't even know the source of them. And really, DPS says that they think that we should be pretty safe and they're gonna try to send out some extra security guards, They're really gonna try. And I can't afford to take the day off, so I guess I'm just gonna have to, go in. 2016 comes and brings with it more protests. At this point, the teachers who are left are pretty much at their wits' end. On top of everything that they've already been through, now the district is saying that they're not really sure whether or not they're gonna have the money to pay us through the end of the year, even though they're pretty sure that they want us, to work to the end of the year. So teachers band together across the district, and we all call in sick of the nonsense. And I, for one, took my days quite proudly in solidarity with my coworkers. And as a result of so many sick teachers, a lot of buildings were forced to close. It caused so much uproar. I mean, it was all over the news, and you couldn't go anywhere without hearing about those Detroit public school teachers and their sick outs. A lot of parents said that we were selfish, said that our first priority should have been making sure that their kids were taken care of. A lot of lawmakers said that we were uncaring, said that if we really wanted to fix the problems, then we would be in the classroom, of course, because the classroom. Nobody talked about our kids. No one asked how we were going to provide for them. No one said anything about our livelihoods. And at this point, I'm so frustrated. I think about all the things that I actually need. Better pay, better insurance, updated technology, a cleaner building. I think about my students, my brilliant, hilarious, compassionate students, and the things that they need. I remember that most of them fall below the poverty line, and that most of them have experienced some type of trauma over their lifetime. I think about all the stories they've told me. I think about the deaths in their family, their parents, their siblings, their friends, to cancer, to gun violence, to accidents. I really wish that there were more grief counselors for them, someplace that they can go and vent and receive the emotional support that they need. But right now, it's just not there. So I find myself being the source of emotional support all the time, and I think about that too, about how when I go home, there's not much left to give my family. And then I wonder how anybody could even consider calling teachers selfish or uncaring. And of course, 2016 brings calls from stepdad. Brittany, I know that you're gonna quit now. I know you are because I saw it on the news. All the schools were closed and there were sick outs they called and I heard about them. So when are you coming up here to teach? I don't even have the heart to argue this time. Instead, I try to describe the marchers to him. I tell him about the hundreds of teachers who I'm walking with and we're pacing the Fisher building. I tell him about the jokes in the labs that we have, but also the frustration. I tell him about the picket signs, some funny, some not so much. I tell him about one that a woman carried that listed the costs of her undergrad, her master's, and her doctorate degree. Below it, she listed the pay that she received each week, that of a first-year teacher in most districts. And then I asked Stepdad, what could we have possibly done to make people treat us this way? What do they think is going to happen if these hundreds of teachers who are marching actually don't come back to work? What's going to happen to our students then? I think about the problems and the issues that we have. I think about how much better other districts do have it sometimes. But then I remember that if we don't fight for what our kids need, and if we don't fight for what we need, we're not going to get it. It's not fair, but it's the truth. So it's 2017 now, and things are slowly looking like they may improve. We finally have a school board that we're hoping will return to locally elected control. I can't say that it's the same, though. I can't say that I have the same optimism that I had in 2011. I can't say that my stepfather's thoughts don't echo in my own head sometimes. I can't say that I never think, what if? However, I can say that I'm here, still, and I plan to stay.
Brittany Rogers, school teacher, educator,